Good afternoon. Let's do some business, big business this week. We are doing it live, weekday afternoons at 4. We get right down to business here with the news-driven hour after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Today coming to you live from the Milken Institute 2024 Global Conference in Beverly Hills, which has attracted about 4,000 movers and shakers from around the world, including more than 1,000 prominent speakers, leaders in business, government, health, finance, technology, philanthropy, media, and the list goes on. Special coverage of this amazing gathering coming up for you this week here on 790 KBC on Mottek On Money. Stocks ended higher today as expectations the Fed will cut interest rates later this year provided a bit of a boost. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 177 points, kicking off the new week with gains posted its fourth consecutive daily gain, by the way. The S&P 500 moving higher by 53, and the NASDAQ moved up nearly 200 points. News being made here at the Global Conference right off the bat, with inflation very much in focus. The founder and chief executive of financial giant Citadel, Ken Griffin, said here today if the Fed policymakers haven't cut in September, they're likely to cut in December. There's still a question of will inflation actually decelerate enough by then. Griffin said wage growth is sticky, core inflation is sticky, deglobalization is happening. That takes away from the constant deflationary trend that has helped the pricing of the goods for most of our adult lifetime. Also, Jane Fraser, Citi CEO, said AI, which is a big subject here at this conference, is harder than anticipated. We also heard from the head of IBM on AI. The company has booked more than $1 billion in AI revenue over the last year. We did get some soothing words from a top Fed official who's also at this conference. Fed Reserve Bank of New York President John Williams said the process of shrinking the Fed's balance sheet has gone smoothly. In the business of show business, new attention focused on takeover talks involving entertainment giant Paramount Global. Oil futures pulling back a bit as traders attempted to sort out the latest developments in the Middle East and the Israel-Hamas war. We're following the latest headlines as we speak. We see the price of oil moving higher by 37 cents to make it $78.48 a barrel in New York. Brent crude in London moving higher, up 37 cents at $83.33 a barrel. Taking a look at some other big stories here today, we see veteran prosecutor Nathan Hochman has received a big endorsement today in the Los Angeles County District Attorney election coming up in November against incumbent DA George Gascon. Former Los Angeles County DA Jackie LACEY has announced her support for Nathan Hochman. The Honorable Jackie LACEY will be joining us live later this hour. Elon Musk set to speak this evening at the Milken Institute Global Conference. There's a report that he's consolidating his power at Tesla as a vote over his $47 billion pay package looms. I'll talk Tesla, EVs, and all things cars coming up with veteran LA business and automotive journalist Richard Saxton will be joining me live later this hour. But first, joining us now here at the Milken Institute Global Conference, Charlie Gasparino, Fox business correspondent and New York Post columnist. Charlie, welcome back to Beverly Hills. Great to see you back here. Let's ask you right off the bat here, what is the buzz you're picking up here at this terrific conference on what's happening in the world with the markets and all the big news you've been breaking and covering here today?
You know, the buzz, interesting. Now, just today, maybe wasn't really the markets. It was a combination of things. I picked up some buzz about the Paramount, M&A saga, which is interesting because the consensus that's coming out of, at least because one thing great about this place, it's one-stop shopping for top executives and bankers. I spoke to a couple of media executives. I guess the theory now is there may be no deal at all. That the Apollo Sony bid, that's one of the bidders, is not going to pass regulatory muster. So at some point it's going to die, either before or after. Maybe in 2 years, as it's being litigated, if that's where they go. And the Skydance deal, which is a more complicated thing with Keith Ellison, the head of Skydance, and Redbird as a Redbird Capital as a private equity investor, doesn't have the same hair on it, but it has different hair. Like the hair of the Sony Apollo thing is PE and foreign ownership. This doesn't have foreign ownership. Skydance is going to be running the show. They'll have some they'll have some management with Redbird, which is PE, but it'll be U.S. management. But the problem with this is the common shareholders hate the structure. The structure is not a pure buyout. It's some weird thing where Sherry Redstone sells her controlling stake, and the common shareholders don't really benefit that much. So there's a chance that this thing's not going to get done. I mean, and it's just going to go along as it is, which is problematic. I mean, the real thing here, Frank, is that the regulatory environment is so weird. The reason why these assets are floundering, and it's not just Paramount, right? It's, you saw what's going on with Discovery, with the price action recently on something that shouldn't really blow up the stock, whether they're going to lose the NBA rights or something like that. I mean, Discovery's, just crashed after that. And one of the problems is there's no real valuation of assets because the Biden administration will not allow a tech player, which is the natural buyers right now for all this entertainment. Tech wants to be, a sort of thing where they got content where you go to Amazon, you watch movies and everything else. They should be Apple, the same thing. They should be able to buy these assets, and they would be priced accordingly to the fact that there is more natural buyers. They are the most natural buyer for a TV studio right now, and a media company is not another media company through a merger. It is literally tech, because tech's got cash, and they essentially, have the business model that wants to do one-stop shopping on your iPhone or on whatever. You know what I'm saying? Amazon has a product now where you can buy dog food and watch a movie. And they want to expand into that, watch the movie. And probably they want to expand into news. And, the Biden administration will not allow that. And I think that's mispricing these assets.
On the air with Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business and New York Post columnist. It's wonderful you've landed here, Charlie, in the heart of Hollywood here on all this big news here. And, of course, coming off the strike last year, Paramount Global and the others still reeling from all of this, and where AI was a big issue. AI, a big topic here at the conference here as well. What are your thoughts about this AI craze that's gripping the business world?
No, I don't have to admit, I don't think anybody knows. I mean, it has the potential to be like a massively disruptive technology. It has a chance to literally commoditize a lot of service-related jobs, which is both good and bad. It will lead to deflation to a certain extent, or less inflation, because all these middlemen will be cut out, because AI will be taking the place of, I don't know, why would you need to go to a travel agent when you got AI? Or why would you have to check Google if you got AI? There's a way of doing this that cuts out middlemen. So there's both positive and negatives, and I don't think we've got our hands around it yet. I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth. Half of me says it's going to destroy the world as we know it. The other half says, it might be, net good. There'll be a technology that needs people to employ to sort of create the technology to do the functionary tasks involved in maintaining the technology. That's always what happened. People thought it was going to be the end of the world, of the end of the real estate market, because Amazon, when it was just purely a bookseller, people were not going to go to malls anymore, and we're not going to bookstores, right? So they could destroy the book market, and people adapted, and the book market is, there's parts of it that are commoditized, but it didn't destroy life as we know it. So I'm hesitant to be a doomsayer on this.
On the air with Charlie Gasparino, and on the New York Post column, you recently focused on what's happening at the universities, Charlie. A lot of attention focused here on what's going on at UCLA and USC here at the moment. Give us your thoughts about what's going on.
I mean, in this day and age, I never thought I'd be talking about rampant anti-Semitism, and that's essentially what this is. I mean, this is left-wing jargon, disguising virulent anti-Semitism. This is some of the most cowardly leaders we have in our country today are university presidents and chancellors. I mean, they really are disgusting. Here's the thing, and they hide behind this weird sort of theory of free speech and all this. I mean, listen, there's no free speech in shouting at a Jewish student, to the river, to the sea, which essentially means kill all Jews. I mean, there's no free speech. I mean, that's like, and I'm not even talking hate crime. That's a provocative threat. and they're allowing it on their campus, and it's really disgusting and it's sick. And I think the only thing positive out of this is that it's literally the free market is going to work now. I can tell you, and I've written about this in my post columns, that that major employers are not going to hire people from certain schools. That they're going to be afraid that those schools, because they allowed some of this stuff to go on unaddressed, that they're basically saying, what are they teaching in the classroom? I mean, are they really teaching an interpretation of history that says Israel is like something close to the Nazi army? I mean, are they? And by the way, a lot of them are. Some of these Middle Eastern studies courses and other things. And so, so I just don't think that employers want to recruit from places, because then they bring that sort of attitude to work. I mean, we're talking common sense here. So I think that's the positive thing. The positive thing here is it's going to be Columbia now, but Harvard and all these other places got shellacked in the brand department.
Yes. And Bill Ackman's been outspoken. I believe he's also here at this conference as far as the funding of these places. That, of course, is being revisited by many of the movers and shakers present here.
Yeah, I did a column last week, my Sunday column, where I talked about, I had some graduates of different schools, like Georgetown University's Foreign Service School, who told me that, how, and by the way, Georgetown, you should know, is a Jesuit college. It was started by Jesuit priests. They opened up I think like a campus in Qatar, and they really go out of their way in the Foreign Service too, according to this guy, that to teach a sort of interpretation of Middle East events that puts Israel at the center of all evil. And then, you ask, why would they do that? Well, some of it is the ideology of the professors, that they attract a very left-wing Marxist sort of viewpoint. But the other thing is the money. I noticed tens of millions of dollars. By the way, you can check this out by going to the Department of Education's website. There's a place where you can type in the school and type in the country. So I typed in Georgetown, I typed in Qatar. It was tens of millions of dollars over the last, I would say, 10 years. It was remarkable. I think their database goes back to 2015, so 9 years. And it was just amazing. And so there is a money incentive to be doing what they're doing as well, which is quite scary.
On the air with Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business and New York Post columnist, and Charlie, on the front row seat that you have there in New York with this trial going on. Let's turn to politics for just a moment with President Trump on trial. Give us your thoughts about what's happening here and how this may impact the November election.
That's a great question. So it looks like it's helping him right now. One of the interesting things, and I think it was Ben Shapiro, the podcaster and journalist.
He was on just before me.
Okay, so Ben made this on his podcast. He said, the reason why this is helping Trump is because he's so preoccupied by this trial, right, is that instead of tweeting all day and saying crazy stuff on Twitter or Truth Social, he's literally does these 5-minute press conferences where he basically talks about how radical the left is, and it sounds. He's explaining what's going on today, and then he disappears, and it's like more is less when it comes to Trump sometimes, because if you think about it, Trump's policies, it makes you focus on the economy and policies, which were Donald sounds erratic, but Donald's policies were pretty mainstream, common sense sort of stuff, control the borders, lower taxes, less regulatory, better regulatory environment. What was crazy was his Twitter feed. If he didn't like you, he'd say stuff, and people are like, wow, what is this, the president saying this? So he's doing less of that, and it's helping him. Listen, I can't tell you who's going to win. I think it'll be a close election no matter what. But I think Joe Biden, in many ways, is such a failed presidency because, you basically, if you think about it from a foreign policy standpoint, we literally have a more dangerous world, much more dangerous than we've had, in many years, in decades. On top of that, we have an economy that's weird, and it basically, there's a huge tax on the middle and working class called inflation. It's not hasn't gone away yet. You have a border that's in disarray. Who knows who's walking over the border? And we got a guy that in the White House that can barely utter a coherent sentence, and people are saying what have we gotten into? And then if he doesn't make it if he gets elected and doesn't make it, well, his vice president is conceivably Kamala Harris is even less competent. At least she is the person that's supposed to be in charge of the border, and that's not a good situation. So this is kind of a failed presidency, and it's kind of scary.
You mentioned Twitter, now known as X. We're going to be hearing from Elon Musk this evening. He's one of the big names, of course, in the past, Charlie, at this conference. Tesla has very much been in focus. What do you think we're going to hear from Elon Musk on Tesla, on X, or on SpaceX? He's got it all, and back to number one on the wealthiest person in the world list.
Yeah, Elon's a wild card. I don't know. I mean, listen, he may be very sort of nuts and bolts. Here's what I'm doing at Tesla. Here's my cost cutting. He's doing some cost cutting right now. Here's what we're doing with X in the future. Here's why we're doing it. And they're rolling out all sorts of different features. And, and he may talk about, free speech, which he's a free speech absolutist. Although I can clearly, because if you follow his Twitter feed, which I do, I can clearly see him becoming very animated about what's going on on the campuses with anti-Semitism. He may go there, and so I think it'll be he never really disappoints.
We're on the air with Charlie GASPARINO, and Charlie, we were expecting a recession all of last year, and looks like new concerns about it possibly happening this year with inflation still running hot and the economy slowing. What's the word on the economy and the markets from what your movers and shakers and your market monitors are saying?
Well, it's interesting that most people predicting that that things are starting to slow down now. I mean, listen, take it for what it's worth. They've been predicting this for a while. But, when I talk to Larry Fink, when I read some of the research, Larry Fink runs BlackRock, so he has a bird's eye view since being the biggest money manager. And when I listen to Goldman, see some of Goldman's research, they think that the numbers are starting to show a slowdown that's pretty dramatic, and that inflation may really come down hard in the next month. And that'll give the Fed some room to cut maybe in June or July or definitely September. So, and the Fed wants to do that right now. But the problem is that we've seen this, game planning this is not that easy. I mean, listen, they got good data, these companies. Trust me, they don't get paid to be wrong. But, everybody's been wrong about this. I think one of the problems is that we've never had a monetary and fiscal policy experiment that we've had under Joe Biden. That's another problem with him. I mean, he literally spent money he didn't need to spend. There was no reason to do trillion after trillion after trillion. It was pushing on a string, and instead of expanding the economy, he was just creating inflation and screwing up supply chains and doing stupid things. I mean, it really was a disastrous thing. And then the Fed got smarter faster than him, but the Fed didn't help because they kept printing money until the very end, until 2022, right? That's when they started raising rates. So remember, they've gotten this before wrong. But if you're talking to the Wall Street smart money, what I keep hearing is that they're going to cut, maybe no later than September. They're going to do one cut, and they're going to have the numbers to back up the cut. That's what they're saying.
And last but not least, people follow you because you've been great on the crypto coverage as well. And we talk to the biggest fans here as well as the harshest critics. And you work with some great people on crypto as well. What about crypto here and regulation and the latest news on that?
Well, it's really my producer, Eleanor Terrett. And if you're into crypto, I would follow her on Twitter because she breaks a lot of news. Listen, from a regulatory standpoint, I mean, this is clearly an administration that does not see a lot of value in crypto. And I think one thing that people are not taking totally serious is that the number 2 crypto is Ethereum. And Gary Gensler and the SEC may deem that illegally issued. And what's known as a security means they have to go in and get it registered, but that's a whole other thing. If you have to do that, it could be a real problem for the market, for the crypto market. So now it may be if Ethereum is litigated to be a security, Ripple, which is the number 3 crypto, is litigated to security. That might be good for Bitcoin because that will be the last man standing. So this stuff, if you're into crypto, I pay attention to all this.
Terrific. Hope to connect with Eleanor here at the conference and get her on as well to specifically talk about that, Charlie. Wish we had more time, but thank you very much for joining us. The tradition continues. Charlie Gasparino, our leadoff batter here at the Milken Institute Global Conference in Beverly Hills. Charlie Gasparino with Fox Business, also New York Post columnist. Charlie, great to see you back here in Beverly Hills.
My pleasure. Love your show, Frank.
Thanks very much, Charlie. And let's get right out to the freeways now. 790 KABC. Folks, let's be honest. Sometimes we find ourselves or a loved one dealing with a massive injury caused by a terrible accident by no fault of our own. Sometimes it's simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Listen, we're good at preparing for earthquakes and fires, but let's not forget to prepare in case we're involved in a major accident. It's critical to know who to call first. Clark Fielding became a lawyer to help you in a crisis. Fielding Law is focused on justice and resources for you because they understand how the system works and what to do in the most horrific situations. I always say to put the Fielding Law team in your phone under the word accident, so all you have to do is hit that button. Believe me, you'll feel a lot better having set this up for yourself and your family. The number to call, 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. With the population exploding and increased vehicles on the freeways, be proactive, prepare for the worst, and expect the best. But if and when you do need help, call Clark Fielding and his team of sharks. That number is 833-88-SHARK. 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Again, that's clarkthesharklaw.com. 790 KBC welcomes Howard Jones and ABC with Haircut 100 coming to the YouTube Theater August 20th. Live Nation's Concert Week is here with $25 tickets to over 5,000 shows. Tickets on sale now through May 14th at Ticketmaster.com. Right now, Caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. Yep, you can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're Caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC, a winning start to the week on Wall Street, with the Dow closing up 176, the S&P 500 at 53, and the NASDAQ gained 193. The price of oil moving higher, up 28 cents at 78.75 a barrel. Watching the latest headlines out of the Middle East, Israel began hitting targets in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. We'll have the latest news on that coming up in just a moment. Gold moving higher by nearly $3 at $2,333.80 an ounce. Among the winners today, Super Micro Computer shares moving up more than $47 at $830 and change, a jump of 6%. Paramount Global stock moving up 40 cents at $13.29. Taking a look at the cryptos now, let's bring up how Bitcoin's doing today. In all this, up 151 here at the moment at 63,344. Now the latest news here in 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Crime continues to be a huge issue for all of us here in Los Angeles. People sick and tired of what's happening and demanding change. Veteran prosecutor Nathan Hochman has received a big endorsement today in the Los Angeles County District Attorney election coming up in November against soft-on-crime incumbent George Gascon. Joining us live now is former Los Angeles County District Attorney Jackie LACEY. The Honorable Jackie LACEY is on the line. Thank you very much for joining us here live this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Frank. It's good to be able to talk directly with the listeners who are the voters in November and give them my point of view.
Thank you very much, and let's hear your big announcement today.
Yeah, I've been quiet for 4 years, kind of disappeared into the background after I lost my election. But I've been watching some of the decisions of the current administration, the DA's office, and today I announced that I'm endorsing Nathan Hochman for district attorney.
That is big news. He, of course, a veteran prosecutor, and compared to the incumbent, has actually tried cases, right? Tell us about your endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you'll read decisions that happen with regard to that office, and you'll often see the backtrack or you'll see things go awry, and that's because the leader of that office has zero trial experience, zero courtroom experience. Contrast that with Nathan Hochman, who was a U.S. attorney and also a defense attorney. He has 100 trials. And believe me, when you're making decisions on whether you can prove something beyond a reasonable doubt, that experience is invaluable. And it's important also that the prosecutor not come to each case with sort of their mind made up that they're not going to file it or they're going to underfile it. And Nathan is the kind of open-minded individual who will approach cases and will enact policies that support our safety. Because let's face it, a lot of us just don't feel safe right now.
People certainly sickened by what's going on out there, especially on the metro system these days. You probably have seen the horrific videos of bus drivers being attacked, and of course, then we had the murder on the subway system recently. What are your thoughts about what's going on out there?
Well, I'm sickened. The woman who was murdered, she was trying to save up money to get her family here from another country, and she was stabbed to death for whatever reason on the metro system. It's shocking because when the metro system first came up, I got a tour, and there are cameras everywhere, and so you would think it was safe. And at one point, of course, it was the security was provided by the LA County Sheriff's Department, and since then, you've had people back off. But I think big picture is that there's a perception by the criminal element that things are a lot easier to get away with here in LA County. Because when you have a prosecutor who says, no matter what, I'm going to seek, in most cases, the least restrictive sentence I can give a defendant, without then countering it with, services or whatever you think is going to keep us safe. That's why you have the criminals becoming more brazen. They know they can get, first of all, they know they can get out pretty quickly, but more importantly, they know that the price of crime has dropped dramatically.
And certainly businesses have been hit hard by retail theft, with shoplifters getting away in so many situations. What about that? And do you think Nathan Hochman would address the retail theft issue that's absolutely gone nuts out there?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are like me. You just so resent going into your neighborhood CVS or your Ralph's or whatever and seeing things that you need, like toothpaste or whatever, locked up behind gates. You also resent the fact that at that front door is an armed security guard. Why would you need that at a grocery store, right? I mean, that in and of itself is free. And you also resent that stores are closing up. And it's all due to the theft has just gotten out of hand. This administration didn't even apply for a grant that the governor was offering, for instance, to combat smash and grab crime. They didn't even bother because they just didn't want to do anything about it. Contrast that with Nathan. As a result of Nathan's experience, he understands that shoplifting is not a victimless crime. That we all pay for it in the way of higher prices because you've got to pay for that security, and that we need to reverse that. I mean, it's not like Frank, this should be a surprise. Look at the videos of what was going on in San Francisco 4 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, San Francisco's crime rates are dropped, according to a report in January. And all the videos showing brazen shoplifting is here in LA. Why do you think that is? And it's that way because criminals know they've got allies embedded in the LA District Attorney's Office, and they can get away with it. And it's unfair. It's unfair because it isn't a victimless crime. People aren't stealing food. They're stealing stuff they could quickly turn around and sell. And this is just wrong. How about that? It's just wrong. And accountability when you commit crimes is not a bad thing. Look, I'm not a tough-on-crime person. I believe in mercy and empathy, and I've shown that in the DA's office. But enough is enough. People are sick and tired of watching this on the news on a regular basis, watching theft go up. I think theft is up like 200%, property crime. And they're sick and tired of it, and they need a change. And Nathan Hochman can deliver that change for LA voters. On the air live with the Honorable Jackie LACEY, the former Los Angeles County District Attorney.
It's wonderful to speak with you again. Tell us what you've been up to these days. I know you've been very supportive recently of the Union Rescue Mission, which I also am involved with now with the amazing stories on Skid Row radio show that we do on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on 790 KABC. And tell us about your work there as well.
Well, the Union Rescue Mission was my husband's favorite charity. He's now deceased. He passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2022. But prior to that, I actually volunteered at the Union Rescue Mission. I was working at Hope Gardens, sort of undercover. No one knew I was there, or who I was, I should say, in the kitchen. And I was there for 6 months, serving food to the residents there and witnessed the great work that they do, the transformational work that they do. And I was asked, actually, to join the board of directors. So I'm on the board of directors. And this charity is just so well run. But more importantly, I think they have an answer to a lot of the homelessness that we're seeing in LA County. You know, you can't stick someone who has a lot of social issues and mental health issues and substance abuse issues in a hotel room and expect them to change. And Union Rescue Mission gets that. They give job training. They teach people how to save money. They feed them. They give them a safe, clean, drug-free environment to live in. They take in families with kids. They take in immigrants. And I would like to see them receive more grants from the government. And that's why I joined the board, is I understand the county and city bureaucracy. I lived in it. I dealt with it. And I want to see these programs grow. They are clean places. They're fantastic, but more importantly, they transform the person so that the person doesn't fall back into homelessness. And I'm just grateful that they've allowed me to serve on the board.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we also honor the memory of your husband, and thank you very much for that powerful statement of support today also for Nathan Hochman, the announcement today that you've endorsed the LA County DA up for election coming up here, Nathan Hochman against the incumbent, and also the endorsement of the Union Rescue Mission today. And we look forward to speaking with you more often, and thank you very, very much for taking the call here this afternoon. The Honorable Jackie Lacey, thank you very much for joining us here this afternoon.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you very, very much. And let's get right out to the freeways now on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Biggest names in business gathering in Beverly Hills this week at the Milken Institute Global Conference. One of the wealthiest in the world, Elon Musk, set to speak this evening at the conference. He's expected to bring up Tesla, perhaps, maybe X, formerly known as Twitter, perhaps SpaceX. He's creating quite a buzz here. But we do expect to hear some things, perhaps about EVs. And let's bring in our car expert now at the Milken Global Conference, and that is veteran Los Angeles business and automotive journalist Richard Saxton. Richard, wonderful to see you here at the conference.
Frank, it's great to be here, and we look forward to Elon Musk is speaking about 9 minutes from now, so we're going to maybe try and dash down and catch a little bit of it. But I think he will obviously talk about Tesla because the stock has been a stellar performer. Last year, remember, Kathy Woods of the ARK Funds was here, and she had to put up with a lot of grief because the stock that tumbled as well as her portfolios. But you've got to take a look at Tesla. Their sales in the first quarter were down 13%. But when you compare Tesla to other manufacturers, they basically have the Model 3 and the Model Y, which is based on the Model 3, as their main leaders. And most legacy manufacturers have multiple brands and many vehicles. So Tesla has to get creative and look at other avenues to expand their portfolio and their business. I believe they're looking at lower cost vehicles. They're going to look at getting robo-taxis so that they can do fleet. They're looking at software that will make the vehicles autonomous. So Elon needs to expand out because they have the Model S, of course, and then the X, which is based on the SUV version, the Cybertruck, which I passed today coming to the conference. Wow. I haven't seen a lot of the Tesla Cybertrucks around, but The Model 3, Model Y is their bread and butter. So sales are down 13% in the first quarter. EV sales were down in the first quarter as well. 7.1% of new vehicle sales in the first quarter were EVs. So that leaves almost 93% of what they call ICE, or the internal combustion engine vehicles.
Well, it remains to be seen if he's going to pull up in a Cybertruck. We see a lot of Cybertrucks in Beverly Hills, by the way. The silver, the gold, black, and some are covered with advertising these days, so they are definitely making a presence here. Also, there's a report that Elon Musk consolidating his power at Tesla as a vote over his $47 billion pay package looms. How's that for a payday? So a lot riding on what's happening at Tesla, and zooming out to the bigger EV picture. Looks like the EVs and overall have had a bumpy road lately with Fisker and some of the other names coming under pressure.
Yeah, and I think the reason that Elon is so successful is because of his track record with the venture capital companies in Silicon Valley. I mean, he's had many success stories, and they're willing to back him because they know how well he's done with other ventures. Henrik Fisker, who I've known for, 25, 30 years, used to, be a car designer. I mean, they're struggling, but you've got to look at the overall EV market. And I think maybe all the believers are in it, and now they've got to expand it, to the people that have normally driven internal combustion engine vehicles. And I think hybrids is the sweet spot. They're not willing to go all EV. As you know, this winter, where there are all kinds of reports that EVs didn't operate in the very cold weather. That was kind of a black eye, and the EV market is kind of stalling out here and to spread to the mainstream, and it's that challenge, with all the worries about range anxiety. Where are the charging stations? Tesla has their own format of charger, but now if you have another EV model, you might be able to get an adapter. So they've got to somehow get a uniform charging thing. They need more charging stations out there. And people have those worries. And it's clear that people on vacation don't want to rent an EV. So you heard this story last month that Hertz is selling off 20,000 ones that Teslas that they have in the rental market. So people are not wanting to rent them either.
All right, I think I see a Cybertruck pulling up. I'm not sure if he's in it, but I know you're going to run down there, Richard. So to see Elon Musk speaking here at the conference shortly. Always great to see you here, Richard, and thank you very much for joining us here. That is veteran Los Angeles business and automotive journalist Richard Saxton, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Special coverage here from the Milken Institute Global Conference. On an update for the markets, we'll continue to get the views of the biggest names in business here. We see the Dow closing up nearly 200 today, the S&P 500 of 53, and the NASDAQ composite gained nearly 200 points. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. I'll be doing more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here, Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
What's up, everyone? It's Reality Steve, your number one source for all things Bachelor Nation and reality TV. Every day, I'm giving you the behind-the-scenes juice and your info on all your Bachelor Nation stories, and also interviewing some of your favorite reality stars. My name has been synonymous with spoilers, but I'm so much more than that. Give me a listen.
The Reality Steve Podcast, part of the Believe Network. Just search BLEAV on YouTube or wherever you listen.